Good day to everyone. We've got a lot of material today that I think will apply to a very wide range of listeners. Almost any business of every type would benefit from this discussion. We're going to be talking about in just a moment some myths about information security, and one of those myths so often is that people worry about the fact that, well, if I don't have personally identifiable information, if I'm not a consumer company, if you will, if I'm not a company like Amazon.com, or I'm not a company like a healthcare provider, I don't really need to be worried about information security. And clearly that is not the case. And we're going to be talking about that even very traditional brick and mortar companies that are involved in creating office furniture, have information security risks that need to be mitigated. So let's talk about some of the topics that we're going to be discussing today. And on the agenda that you have in front of you, you'll see that after this brief introduction, we're going to just have a very basic overview of the cyber landscape. And I promise you this is not going to be a discussion where we simply have lots and lots of statistics about how bad security risks are, but we're going to talk about some solutions and how to mitigate risk, and that's very important. As I mentioned a moment ago, we're going to talk about common security myths, and believe it or not, even sophisticated organizations, large national organizations, somehow still fall victim to these myths about information security. We'll talk for a few minutes about sources of risk, and we could actually do an entire separate discussion. We'll have at least an hour, if not more, on just the types of risks, sources of risk that are presented to businesses today. We're going to focus on the human factor, and if nothing else that you take away from this discussion today, it is that regardless of what you do technology-wise, regardless of the outstanding incident response program that you have, regardless of all the other work that you do in your organization to mitigate information security risk, if you do not adequately address the human factor, that is training employees, educating employees, not just when they're hired, but on an ongoing basis about information security risk, you will be open to potential compromise. And in fact, the statistic that you'll hear me repeat at least several times during this discussion is that the overwhelming majority of information security compromises that have occurred have resulted from the human factor, human error. We're then going to talk about incident response, and we've got lots of information there. We're going to go through what you should be doing in the first 24 hours after you learn about an incident, what kinds of steps should you be taking, etc. Then we'll spend a few minutes talking about information security policies and why they are important. Particularly, information security policies are part of your overall information security program. And if there were to be a security incident or actual compromise, showing that you have thoughtful security policies is one step in establishing that your company has been diligent in addressing information security. Then we're going to turn to kind of my favorite topic, which is seeing the forest for the trees. If you have been active at all in looking at information security risks, you know that there are more or less a morass of laws, regulations, contractual standards, industry standards out there, both state, federal, and international. And all of these things somehow relate to information security and privacy. And somehow all of these things are important to you in some way or another, depending on what kind of organization you are. But how do you understand generally what all of those things mean, particularly when we see a lot of conflicts frequently in those laws, rules, regulations, standards, contractual requirements, etc. And so in this section, what we're going to do is to talk about how to get a sort of forest for the trees look at that entire landscape. So all too often in discussions like this, everyone gets focused on a particular leaf or a particular branch on a tree with regard to information security, but you seldom step back and see the entire tree, and certainly you never step back far enough that you can get a feel for the forest. Well, in this part of the discussion today, we're going to spend just a few minutes and identify three common threads that run through more or less every single law, regulation, rule, contractual standard, industry standard relating to information security. And if you get an appreciation for those three common threads, then you'll have that forest for the trees look at information security regulation as a whole. Pay attention there, and I think it'll be beneficial. And an easy example of this is many of the people on the phone today may be familiar with the New York law that was just released not long ago involving financial institutions and others regarding information security. And the concepts that we're going to be talking about in the Seeing the Forest for the Trees section are right out of that statute. They show these same common threads. And then last, we'll spend just a few moments talking about an appropriate, thoughtful, healthy information security program. What kind of components go into that? So without further ado, let me move forward and let's talk about information security at a sort of the overall landscape. And as I mentioned at the beginning, all too often businesses think about information security in terms of, for example, that upper left block that you see in front of you, which stands for protected health information. If you're a healthcare provider, you're worried about that extremely sensitive information. Or if you're a bank, you're worried about your customers' data. If you're a consumer company, you're worried about the information of the consumers that you serve. The problem is that all too often, all of these other things that you see on this page are neglected. What about employee personal information? So the example I gave at the beginning of a office supply company having information security risk, we actually worked with such a company, and their first comment to us was, well, we shouldn't really be much of a target or have much of a concern because we don't have any personally identifiable information. And my initial response was, well, you don't have any employees? Well, yes, we do. We have several thousand. Well, and you have their HR information, you have their healthcare information, you have their social security numbers, you have their compensation. That's personally identifiable information. So the purpose of this slide is to simply indicate there are lots of potential sources of information within any company that deserve protection. There might be intellectual property. There might be sales data. There might be trade secrets, the source code to your software, or the formula for something that you're developing. All of these things need to be protected. Well, why are cyber attacks, why are they so insidious? Why are we at a point in history where we're seeing these attacks proliferate and we're seeing very little done to really mitigate them? Apart from installing antivirus software and good firewalls, what else can we do, and why do we need to do something more? Well, one of the problems is that, first of all, organized crime has gotten truly into hacking and attacks on businesses. This is evidenced by ransomware, as well as theft of trade secrets and other attacks on businesses. It is a pretty easy analysis from a cost-benefit perspective.
Hi there, hope you enjoyed that last clip. My name is Michael Malutis, and if you'd like to watch the full 60 minutes of that last webcast, while also gaining complete unlimited access to our entire library of IT learning, simply visit our subscribe page at greatpro.org/subscribe. Unlimited annual access is $199 per year. But if you use the coupon code LEARN2EARN, you can drop that membership fee to just $149. That's less than $13 per month for unlimited access to over 1,000 hours of on-demand career development, covering the entire spectrum of IT management best practices, including business analysis and requirements, software development, quality and testing, risk management, process improvement, project management, and even digital transformation. But your membership doesn't just give you unlimited access to our vast learning library. You also get free access to our mobile app, as well as direct access to our network of over 300 of the world's leading IT consultants, all of whom are dedicated to putting practical knowledge at your fingertips so that you can learn more and earn more. I hope you will join me in becoming a member of the Great IT Professional and advancing your career with us. And if you're on YouTube, don't forget to hit that subscribe button above so that you get notified whenever we publish new free webcasts each week of the year. Thank you for your time and best wishes for your continued success.